It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, it's let me make sure that's correct. Yeah, it is Wednesday, December 11th. You know, I feel like I didn't realize it was Wednesday today for a while there. I had to make sure that I was correct on knowing that. But how we doing?
Doing good, man. Good practice today out in the cold, out in the snow. A little unusual. They practiced inside all last week, so I'm not sure what the specific impetus for that today is, but
doesn't that go back to yesterday? One of the things I don't really know that we touched on, but Tomlin said they weren't going to do anything differently with having this 3-game and 11-day stretch thing. And then they did this, which couldn't this be categorized as doing something a bit different than they normally do?
No, actually, I would say they normally practice in the conditions they're going to play in. I think last week was a bit of an anomaly that they practiced inside all 3 days.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that they are getting outside to get used to that. Do we know that we have an early indication of what it's looking like in Philly this weekend? I haven't even looked.
Cold, but I don't think too bad. I wrote it the other day. I can look it up again, but I don't think nothing spectacularly wintry. I love that. We only use that when talking about snow, nothing else.
Yeah.
But I mean,
see, the snow would be fine. If it's cold, the rain is the worst when it's cold. I mean, the rain's the worst in general, but I can deal with the
46
snow.
degrees and cloudy.
Okay. All right. Not bad. So, but I do like that they are getting acclimated to the conditions and practicing in them. In terms of practice, I guess the first thing we can do, Alan, before we dive into more stuff, is go over the participation of guys from today. You know, we already know George Pickens doubtful for this game, not officially rolled out, but obviously didn't practice today with that hamstring injury. Same could be said about Larry Ogunjobi with a groin, Deshaun Elliott with a hamstring, a whole list of guys due to rest: Patrick Queen, Mike Williams, Najee Harris, Isaac Seumalo, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. Full participant Monty Adams with a knee. I feel like none of that's necessarily news. Like, we kind of already had an idea of what to expect in terms of practice participation for the guys to start the week. So anything there that you would say does stand out, if anything, or no, it's status quo?
No, it's pretty much what I was expecting. Dante Jackson being back, I think, was the one questionable thing on the table, and not even listed on the injury report. Full practice today, so good to go for him. We'll see about Larry and Deshaun Elliott. Certainly doesn't close the door for them, but if you were really hopeful they were playing, I don't know that that's a good start. Man, Deshaun Elliott would be a big loss. I mean, I think KZ's a pretty capable backup, but Deshaun Elliott's been so good,
dude. Yeah. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to the same point, right? Like, I wouldn't immediately I don't want to just chalk a game up as a loss or anything like that. But if it took them missing this game to get them back right, I mean, so be it. They have more meaningful games than this one that they're going to play the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with that. Anything else to touch on from anything that happened today at practice? Well, we just talked about the participation of guys, but anything, you mentioned it was really a noteworthy day.
No, not a lot going on. Talked to ERob today a little bit about a number of things. But one of the things that we did not talk about yesterday, because it happened after our show, but I did write last night that we didn't talk about, said he's sticking around. Said he intends to stay in Pittsburgh after this season, and wasn't asked about it. Just kind of volunteered that information last night, and then did it again today. I asked him our hypothetical question that we had talked about. Would he have? Has he thought about what would have happened if he was drafted by the Steelers in 2016? And he kind of said no, he didn't think about it after he went to New England, but he said it was always something that was in the back of his mind as a possibility, and if it was meant to happen, it was going to happen. And he said, Mike T, why you had to take 7 years, I don't know. But he said he's sticking around. So, I mean, obviously the Steelers have to offer him a contract. He's got to agree to it, but it sure seems like he feels confident in that process playing out, and that Elandon Roberts will be back in black and gold in 2025.
Saying that on the Elandon Roberts show on 93.7 The Fan with our guy, friend of the show, Donnie Chedrick.
I
host
think
that
they're
with
both
them.
our guy and friend of the show. I mean,
That's
really.
true. That is true. That is true. You know what? I got to get on ERob. You know, I kind of missed the boat with Pat thanks to his agency. I got to get under in ERob's ear and be like, hey, when you sign that extension, can you give Steelers Now a little bit of a heads up with what's going on with that?
But maybe the fan has already beaten us to it. With is he going to announce it on his radio show?
Yeah, that's true. That's probably a good shout. Dang it. Alan, something that we get on here periodically, I guess if someone's just a new member of the audience, whether it is watching or listening and then going back and watching, you just happen to catch it once in a while on YouTube, somebody always brings up the interest in what you got going on in the background. So we had a new member of the audience, I'm guessing, who hasn't asked that question before, hasn't seen you explain it before. What do we got going on back there? And you are always making additions to that board as well. So there's stuff that sometimes I'm not even familiar with.
So these are credentials. It's by far not all of the credentials I have.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, oh gosh, an entire box here.
Oh wow!
That just I do not have room.
So how do you decide if it makes the wall or not?
It's kind of random. A lot of the oldest ones are up there, and then I just find like things I like, and it's not all credentials. There's some other kind of random stuff up there, but like it's mostly credentials. There's a Steelers one from 2022 that should probably be up there. And I actually, so every once in a while when I come back from a road game, so for home games we only get one for the whole season, so like I don't collect as many as I used to anymore when I was covering 92 different teams. Every once in a while when I come back from a road game, I'll put it up here. There's one from this year there. One over there. But I have a beef. So this here, let's see if I can get this off the wall. This is a credential from the River Hounds this year. And you can see, like this is a piece of plastic that's about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. It's got some, like it's a card, it's like a big piece of plastic. It's sturdy, right? What the NFL is giving us these days, man. This is from Cleveland. It's just a tiny little piece of paper. It's like the flimsiest thing. So, like, you can see how the Cleveland one's all bent from me wearing it for one day. But in Washington, if you remember, as we were recording the post game in Washington, it started to rain behind me in the stadium. We got poured on the drive, on the walk out of the stadium. So my credential from Washington is somewhat permanently disfigured.
Well, I know you can't actually do this, but maybe you should have just declined that flimsy credential from Cleveland, just like Joey Porter would decline any food in Cleveland.
Let's find a spot for old this one here. Maybe we'll go this way. It seems like there's more.
Yeah, I mean that one just like it's been through a lot. Like that's been through battle. But anyway, so Joey Porter saying that, by the way, on Hard Knocks. Was there anything, because there was another Hard Knocks episode that's come out since, obviously we recorded yesterday, that happens, and now we're here recording again. Has there anything happened on that Hard Knocks episode you felt worth bringing up on here? I would say the Steelers, once again, certainly got their shine within the episode, but I don't think it was like the premiere was really about highlighting things that maybe the average fan doesn't get a look into or anything like that. I don't know if there was anything in the second one that like jumped off the page to me personally, but anything to you maybe stand out worth bringing up?
Well, I mean, I okay. First and foremost, like this is not Hard Knocks AFC North. This is Hard Knocks Pittsburgh Steelers and occasionally their opponents. It's never been more clear to me that they're just like they really wanted the Steelers. The Steelers wouldn't agree to do it. This is kind of how they got the Steelers to agree to do it. It's very clear that the people they really want to talk to are the Steelers. And that the Steelers are the main character. And I mean, they're in first place in the division, so they should be, but probably even more than they should be. The second thing I'll say is, man, like, considering the amount of access I know that they're getting, we're not getting a whole lot from this show. I mean, it's interesting. It's fun. Like, it's enjoyable to watch. But, like, in terms of, like, new information being revealed, we're at basically a grand total of 0 right now.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I think the first episode, I don't want to use the word necessarily eye-opening. I think people knew how revered Mike Tomlin was around the league and stuff like that. But, for anybody that doesn't, to at least get to go through what a week of preparation looks like in that building, I think maybe was probably pretty cool. But once you see it one time, to see that over and over again, I think the Steelers were honestly, I think that they'll continue to be the case, but also in terms of just the amount of screen time they've gotten, they've also played 2 divisional games. Baltimore was on a bye this past week, so I think that plays into a bit as well. The one thing that I did find pretty cool that I took away, and I know that there's a story up on the site about it too, was George Pickens, chomping at the bit on the sideline saying that he wished he was playing. For people that maybe think just because of his antics and stuff like that he doesn't care and he doesn't want to be out there, the dude wants to go. I could tell that he wanted to be in that football game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe he was a little upset that he couldn't play.
Yeah,
and you want that from George, right? That's an awesome reaction. So, but yeah, the one thing I think was really weird. So if you're a very close watcher of the Steelers Now YouTube channel, you will have noticed my footage in the episode there of George in the locker room in Cleveland with our familiar little lettering at the bottom, which I sent them the clean copy, and then they used the one with our lettering anyway, which I'm not sure why they did, but whatever. And they played up the rivalry, right? They start the episode with you're driving from Pittsburgh to Cleveland. You're talking about how the teams don't like each other. You sort of set it up with George talking his talk and Myles Garrett saying we both played in the same conditions. And then we watched an entire game between the Steelers and the Browns. Not one piece of trash talk makes it into the cut. Not one confrontational moment between players. Not I don't know. I feel like we're missing a lot. What's the point of having all that access if you're not going to share any of it? I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, anybody can sit down and do a cool. I mean, Jameis Winston being, you know why? Jameis Winston is might be the only guy in the division that has the magnetism to anchor a show opposite Mike Tomlin and not be completely overwhelmed by it. I was interested in Jameis and his story, but man, I don't know. I didn't get it. It just seemed like we were missing so much.
Yeah, despite using the footage like you're talking about from you with George, really didn't lean into that much. Didn't lean into the TJ versus Miles stuff much. Yeah,
and sort of the
now
big,
that you're saying it,
and sort of the big thing for me, what was the most newsworthy thing outside of the Steelers Browns game that happened in the division last week? Deontay Johnson gets suspended by the Ravens.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Didn't even happen. Didn't even happen. It's just not even there. And so I don't know, man. I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed in this episode. I thought the material was there to make it much better than it was. And it is cool to see Joey sit with his dad and watch football and talk about how Joey won't eat in division cities, which is not something that I'd ever thought about before and is actually kind of hilarious. And also he's 100% right. So I love that. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe my expectations were too high. But George Pickens gets hurt at practice, and I mean it happens. They tell us, but we didn't get any real insight about how it happened, why, people's reactions to it. Where's the shot of the locker room when you find out that he's not going to play? An hour before the game, and get to watch these guys process that information as they're taking it.
Talk about all of a sudden Scotty Miller was on another podcast talking about that, for him, the 45 minutes leading up to it, but didn't go into that at all either.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. It was strange to me that it was presented the way it was.
Yeah. Some of the stuff there, the Deontay Johnson thing, the Scotty Miller thing that I just brought up, were things that I was kind of expecting. And then like when they didn't happen. I'm a little bit disappointed. Some other stuff that there though I didn't even like think about. So I'm glad that you brought them up though. We'll see what episode 3 has in store for us and if it continues to be Steelers centric. But something I wanted to get to yesterday that we didn't get the opportunity to do so because I knew it would take a little bit more time and I wanted to do the topic justice. You mentioned the tweet that I put out yesterday about Russell Wilson that kind of blew up. It was like a fake text exchange with somebody saying, did you do the dishes? Send back a picture of Russell Wilson. What does that mean? They're not washed. But
wait, I want to know so who do you text when you set these up? That's what I need to know. That's what I think the people need to know. When Smitty is making a fake text tweet, who is he actually texting?
To people's surprise, it's not Pat. No, but I guess he's getting a shout out on here. It's my friend John Sargison, and I texted him and I was like, "Hey, need you for something. I'm changing your contact name in my phone. I need you to text me this one thing. I'll send this back." I literally set it up like that, and then I have to like delete a message so that goes to the top. So it's it's a process, but well worth it. But anyway, so somebody DMs me and was like, "Hey, I think this would be a good question for the show." And they asked me, do you think the narrative would be different surrounding Russell Wilson if he would have had Arthur Smith earlier, say at the end of his Seattle career, or even if Arthur Smith was in place when he went to Denver? Do you think maybe this washed narrative wouldn't exist surrounding Russ?
That's a good question. I think it would have been different if he stayed in Seattle, no matter what, just because like when you're a legendary player of a franchise, you're generally allowed to like age out gracefully. No one was calling Ben Roethlisberger washed in 2020, even though he objectively was. Like, it just wasn't a thing that was like, vocalized in that way. So I think that's part of it. And the second part is obviously the bad fit with Sean Payton, and how much Denver paid for him. I mean, I think that's part of it. Even if the Russ that you're getting now with Arthur Smith had been the Russ that the Broncos got for him, that still would have been like one of the worst trades in the NFL in the last 5 years. Like it was still bonkers stupid. So like them overpaying for him not working out with Peyton, and I think all that contributed to the sort of idea that like, this guy's just yesterday's news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, overpayment in two ways, right? I mean, in terms of the assets, and then immediately having to give him that new contract, which was an awful contract to put in place. Nathaniel Hackett year one, and then you bring in Sean Payton to, hopefully redo everything there. Clearly didn't want Russell Wilson there, wanted to bring in a quarterback of his own. So, I guess for me, I felt like was never really given a fair shot in Denver. Not saying that I thought he would have ever been the player that he was, 2019-ish. Russell Wilson in Seattle, but I felt like there was more left in the tank than what it looked like was there in Denver, and I think that's being revealed now. So I think Arthur Smith maybe extending the career of Russell Wilson potentially, like for people that thought that he was done. I'm not saying I necessarily was somebody that thought he was done, but I think he is elongating the years of productivity out of Russell Wilson.
All right, let me flip this question on its ear, though.
Okay.
Because the question is, what if Russell Wilson had Arthur Smith?
Mm-hmm.
What if Arthur Smith had Russell Wilson? Arthur Smith, like head coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, just in Atlanta?
In 2022, like 2 weeks after the Seahawks trade Russell Wilson to the Broncos, the Falcons trade away Matt Ryan, never really replace him, and Arthur Smith goes 2 years without a quarterback and gets fired. If the Falcons are the ones to pull off the trade, does it go totally differently? Like, is Arthur
and they
Smith
were 7-10 in both those years in the NFC South? Like, they could have won the South for sure with Russ.
If Arthur Smith gets Russell Wilson, he is still the head coach in Atlanta. I think so. I absolutely think that.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, like, I appreciate what we're getting here, but say like everything else goes the exact same. Well, I guess it wouldn't because of draft position, stuff like that. But you look at like the number of weapons that they've accumulated in Atlanta, and the way that they've kind of built the offensive line too, which is solid. But like, say, could you imagine if Russ did have Bijan Robinson, Drake London, a Kyle Pitts, like the weapons that they've started to accumulate over there in Atlanta, and everything else was the same basically, but you just would have dropped Russell Wilson into the situation.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
There you go.
different conversation for sure. No, I like that. I like, you putting the inverse of the conversation in there as well. But because there's actually another question that we got about Russ. So I guess we'll just bring up some of these right now because we asked Twitter for some questions, which I feel like it's been a while since we've done anyway. So I'm glad that we did. Is there a single Russell Wilson play that stands out to you this year, maybe that's been like, yeah, that's vintage Russ, or is like a favorite play? You're not coming from the fan perspective, but that's why I say that as opposed to like what your favorite play is.
I think it was the touchdown pass to Van Jefferson. That was the one that to me was like, he called it. It was the same play they had run earlier in the drive. He called off the subs from the sideline to say, no, I got this. Runs a little read option or RPO and just kind of slings it in there to Van, who's wide open. Like, to me, I think that's my favorite play of Russell Wilson this year. It's the part of it that like, that's the whole package of what you're getting. Like the throw, not I could make that throw. Like it's everything that leads up to it. That there's only so many people in the world that can do, and Russell Wilson is one of them, and that's what makes him so good.
I want to give an honorable mention for my answer here to the first touchdown pass, the one that George Pickens against the Jets, just because it's silenced a lot, right? Like in that game, we were hearing Justin Fields chants, we were hearing some booing because a lot of people were skeptical about Russ being even put into that position and Justin Fields coming off the field. Then he throws that touchdown, and then look what ended up happening, obviously, in the second half of that game. So that was like an igniter. But my favorite play is the touchdown to Mike Williams against Washington. Cover one blitz, pressure immediately, just off his back foot, dropping it in a bucket. I'd say that's probably my favorite Russell Wilson play so far.
There you go. Yeah, I think that's a good shout out too.
This is a good question because we've talked about the importance of this game as opposed to the upcoming schedule and stuff like that. Levi said, what are your expectations going into the Eagles game, and what's your viewpoint on the importance of it given the upcoming schedule?
I talked a lot about the importance of it on the Morning Rush this morning about the tiebreakers and everything. It's not like it's probably the least important game they have left on their schedule. But that doesn't really mean anything to me. The Eagles have not necessarily been playing that well.
Especially out
I
the
think
gate,
this
like
idea that like, oh, they should just like pack it in this week and go try to beat the Ravens. Like, I mean, I understand the Steelers have had the Ravens number, but the Ravens are good. Like, I mean, you got to try to win
they
them
should just lay down, have a 1-game advantage on the Ravens, and then potentially lose the division lead the following week.
Yeah, I just I don't get it.
Yeah, I saw somebody suggest they treat it like a preseason game. Somebody that's in the media space. Don't want to name any names, but I saw a tweet regarding that. Sit TJ, sit Minka, sit Cam Hayward, sit all these guys this week. Basically, just treat it like a preseason game, and I was scratching my head about that one.
Yeah, I've seen that take from a lot of angles too, and like I don't get it. I think they just almost lost the Carolina Panthers. Like it's not like the Steelers can't win. Like, do I think they're probably going to lose? Yeah, but like it's not like they can't win.
Hold off. We got 2 days till predictions, but I'm in the I'm in the same boat in terms of how I feel right now. But yeah, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, sure, you could say that in terms of you not wanting to push guys that are injured or anything like that. But if guys are healthy, like, yeah, you're not treating this game like a preseason game. It's a regular season game. There's still some importance there when it comes to the team record and as this team tries to push for a division title. So I don't know. It was an interesting take to see for sure. I appreciate this next question because it comes from Omar Khan himself, at Omar Khan Artist. And I'm glad that he's coming to us looking for advice on this topic because he said, what do you think the percentage chance is that Mike Williams is re-signed this offseason? So Omar's looking for a little bit of advice here when it comes to Mike Williams, who has 3 catches, by the way.
Why would Omar need to know? He has 4 catches for the record. Why would Omar need to know the percentage? Omar should already know.
Is it 4? Is it 4 with the OPI, or is it actually 4?
No, I think it's actually 4.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it was 3. But okay. He has 4 catches then since being acquired. Do you think that there's a chance, though, that he is back in the mix?
4 catches, 5 targets, 68 yards.
Okay.
1 touchdown. Yeah, I think there's a chance he's back. I think he's a good fit for the offense. I think he's a solid pro. I think they need a player like him. So yeah, why not?
I guess the way that I'm thinking about it is if you're building a wide receiver room right now and you're taking guys from this roster that you think are going to be back, how many of those guys are out there? Like George is obviously going to be back. Calvin's going to be back.
I think that's
Roman's on a rookie contract.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's under contract. So, like, even if you want to sign one and draft one, there's room for Mike Williams. Like, that's the way I look. And he's, no offense, better than Ben Skoranek and Scotty Miller. Like,
see, that's the thing. I gotta have Ben Skoranek back though.
Mike Williams can block too.
I know, but listen.
Look, I don't know if he wants to come back, but like I think they need a player like him. Now, look, if they go sign T. Higgins in free agency, they don't need Mike Williams anymore. Okay, right. So like it just depends on what they're doing. But
well, that would also cross off the early round receiver talk as well.
I'm just meaning like another big bodied, deep threat type receiver. Like, so if they're gonna sign one of those, or if they're drafting, I'm having a hard time coming up with comparable wide receiver that they could even feasibly get. But like, say they're
in class.
Yeah, Trey Harris from Ole Miss. Okay, he's probably like end of the first round or second round. He's like 6'3".
Yeah. I mean, Ted McMillan's 6'5", 210.
But Ted McMillan's not getting out of the top 5. Let's not get spicy. Yeah. So, like, all right, Trey Harris. Like, let's say they draft him. Like, then there's probably not a need for a player like Mike Williams. And so I don't think it'd be like a first day of free agency bring back, but like much like when like Juju came back and when Rel came back, when it was like, oh, we'll see what's out there. Okay, nah, never mind. Or maybe even like coming back in the middle of the summer. I think it's all very possible.
To be honest, I think the receiver that they're going to fall in love with, and again, I don't know if he's going to be within their range, whether that's picking, they're not going to pick one this high in the 20s or if he'll be there. Savion Williams out of TCU, I think, is a guy that they're going to really like as well. 6'5", 225.
I like Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State.
Yes. So do I. But anyway, this is a question. I knew we were going to get one about this topic. Considering the damage soft tissue injuries have caused this roster and the uptick since last year, is this enough to replace a new strength and conditioning staff just 1 year in and adjust the plan and roll the dice next year?
Yeah, I wrote about that at the site this morning. Go over to Steelers Now and check it out. The Steelers have 35 man games lost to soft tissue injuries already this year. They're almost guaranteed to add to that number. And looks like it's going to go up by 2 this week with both George Pickens and Roman Wilson expected to be out still with hamstrings. They only had 23 man games lost to injury, by soft tissue injury all last year. And when I say soft tissue injury, I'm generally talking about the stuff that is at least somewhat preventable. Strains, sprains, pulls, things that are not like because Alex Highsmith twists his ankle falling, or somebody's Troy Fautanu dislocates his knee, somebody gets a concussion. Those injuries you can't really do anything about. But soft tissue injuries are basically what the entire existence of the team's training staff is there to prevent, from the hot tub to the cold tub to the training staff to the nutritionist to the workout program to the way they stretch before practices and games. Like, all that is designed to prevent soft tissue injuries, and they're doing an awfully bad job of it right now, to the point where they would move on from the coaching staff in 1 year. I don't know. The Steelers generally really don't like to pay 2 coaches to do the same job, but I mean, I would say we're at least in that conversation right now.
And that's the thing, right? Like, to even be having this conversation is awful. 1 year into a tenure, not even a full season through their tenure that we're having this conversation. But we both talked about it yesterday, like the things that we've heard regarding this. There's a lot of, I think, disgruntled players and people within the organization with the way that this has gone this year with this program. So it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, if they are running it back with the same group, obviously, I'm curious to see what they tweak, what they change, because something's got to give. They can't just be status quo.
Let's start with getting rid of the sled in the run test. Let's just start.
So this was from the Facts Mob, by the way. This question, they put Russ pushing a sled was criminal.
Yeah, I mean,
so And then we'll get to one more here. Running Beam says, chances this team ends up in the playoffs as something other than a top 3 seed.
Oh, top 3 seed. Oh, I read that differently.
Oh wait, no, you're right. It says other than the 3 seed. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I think they have a very good chance of being the 3 seed. I would say 2/3 to 3/4. They're going to be the 3 seed. It's really hard to see a way that they're not, honestly.
Like I don't see them being the 4, right? Like I think it's either 3 or a wild card where the Baltimore ends up winning the division. But
I don't really see that either, to be honest. I think they're the 3 seed. Like I feel pretty confident about it.
Okay, I feel good about it, but if you're saying 2/3, where's that other? So you were saying even higher then, like as a 2 seed.
I mean, I guess the rest of it you can divide between finding a way into second, because look, they only have, like, if they beat the Chiefs, which I don't think they're gonna do, but it's certainly like not gonna be any worse than a 40% chance or whatever. It's an NFL game, like anything can happen. If they beat the Chiefs, then all of a sudden, like, that throws the whole top of that into, like, because that's a 2-game swing. So like if the Chiefs lose one more and then they lose that one, the Steelers would pass them.
Yeah. Right. And then you look at Buffalo, who still has Detroit. I think their schedule outside of that
Buffalo's got the Pats twice and the Jets. They're gonna.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time seeing the Steelers catch the Bills, but just because they own that, they could that head-to-head game, it's possible for the Steelers to catch the Pats, and I guess they could fall into the 4 seed or fall into the 5 seed if things go really poorly here. I don't know. I just don't see that happening.
My guess is 3 or 5, but I would 3.
I'm pretty confident in 3 right now. I'm not sure how many of these games they're going to win. I just think like 3 to me is safe because the Ravens schedule is also very difficult. So like I don't see how the Ravens pass them.
So the Ravens play the Giants this week, right? So like if they win, Steelers lose, then all of a sudden it's their 1 game and then they play each other.
But yeah.
So if the Ravens win that game, who holds the tiebreaker between them? If they're 1-1 against each other.
Well, it would depend on who wins their other game against the AFC North. So they would be tied in the AFC North tiebreaker, but like if the Steelers lose to the Chiefs and beat the Bengals, but the Ravens lose to the Browns and beat whoever else they play,
Texans,
even though they would be tied, the Steelers would go ahead because of better division record.
Okay. All right.
And then the conference record is the next one. We talked about this morning, but not specifically with the Ravens. The conference record is the next one, and the Steelers have a by far better conference record. So it's pretty hard for the Ravens to win a tiebreaker. Not impossible, but pretty hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, my prediction's 3. There it is. I'll put it on the record right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And they might they could even lose like 3 or 4 and get 3. And I think it's very possible that they could get into the last week and they're locked into 3 no matter what.
Okay. All right. Well, good stuff, Alan. Till tomorrow. Tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now is the site's accounts and all those places. SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid, and like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. 14,500 subscribers and counting. It'd be really cool if we could get to that 15K by the end of the season. That'd be fun, right? Have like a little like, I don't know, postseason party or something. It could be fun.
Well, especially if it's, end of the season, we're celebrating the Super Bowl win
in New Orleans. Yeah.
Let's make it happen. So do as Alan said. Also, if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. I actually saw that. I know Alan went through them like a week or so ago, but I think we've gotten 3 or 4 more since. So I don't know if there's any questions in there, but I want to give a shout out to the people that have been doing that. So on tomorrow's episode, need a reminder. I'll go through some of those and give you guys shout outs for doing so, because we appreciate the audio listeners as well. So do that for us. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok, and then find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.